Being discarded by an avoidant is one of the most traumatic endings to a relationship that there can be. Avoidants are notorious for discarding their partners. But what exactly is a discard, and why do avoidants do it? Well, first of all, a discard is not a normal breakup. It just isn't. In a normal breakup, usually one or both partners have expressed dissatisfaction with the relationship. They have expressed unresolved issues in the relationship, and the relationship has been winding down. When the relationship ends, it's not a surprise. Now, both parties can want the breakup, or maybe only one party wants the breakup, but it's not a shocker, it's not a surprise. And in a normal breakup, there's typically empathy that's shown. A discard, it is abrupt, it is unilateral. The person being discarded is deprived of a voice or a say in the matter at all. And they're also shown a complete lack of empathy. And it's quick, and that person can be shut out, thrown away, ghosted, that's it. Everything was fine, and then all of a sudden it's over with no explanation. If any explanation is given, it's very vague, and sometimes they're just ghosted. Discards are traumatic. They hit you out of nowhere. It's like having the rug pulled from under your feet. Now, avoidants are known for just dropping their partners out of nowhere. They're just known for dropping people when they didn't see it coming. Why do they do this? Well, understand at their core, avoidants have a very low self-esteem, and they have this deeply rooted fear of abandonment. And this fear of abandonment also stems into other fears like engulfment, rejection. It all comes from childhood, where the avoidant learned to suppress their emotions, and they also started to believe that they were unlovable. They learned that anybody you rely on for your emotional needs is ultimately going to disappoint you, reject you, and abandon you. They carry these fears through their life, and as an adult, those fears still exist. They are unhealed attachment wounds. Now, when a relationship is going very well and emotional intimacy is being built, and they're being treated well by their partner, these trigger these fears of abandonment because the avoidant feels like they're not a lovable person. And if they have to let someone into their heart and get to know the real them, this person will figure out that the avoidant is in fact unlovable and will abandon and reject them. So the avoidant starts to feel overwhelmed. They don't know how to handle this. They don't like emotional intimacy because they're so scared of it. On one hand, they long for it, but on the other hand, they're deathly afraid of it. So they shut down. They learn how to handle their emotions the same way they've done it their whole life. Suppress them, run from problems, not deal with it. So they shut down, they get ice cold, and they run away. And the end result is the partner being ditched out of nowhere, being shown no empathy because the avoidant has completely suppressed their emotions, and given no closure because the avoidant runs from their emotions so they can't articulate them, so the person that's discarded is never given a clear explanation as to why it's happening. Another reason why avoidants can discard is because avoidants fear conflict. They fear conflict because they fear being rejected. They fear that if they vocalize their opinion too much, they will be shut down and rejected. And this is because the avoidant learned as a child that they can't express their feelings, that other people's feelings are more important than their own. So they learn to bottle up their feelings. So when there's an argument that arises, even if it's small in the relationship, this triggers the avoidant's fears. They don't know how to communicate. They haven't learned to because they haven't learned to reflect on their feelings. And because they don't know how to communicate these issues, the small problem becomes much bigger in the mind of the avoidant. And the same thing happens. They suppress those feelings, they run from the problem, they shut down, and they disappear. And while the avoidant has their fears triggered, whether it's because the relationship is going well or because there's been some sort of disagreement, the avoidant feels that the relationship was doomed anyway. So they can begin to self-sabotage, do things like cheating, gaslighting, stonewalling, pushing their partner away, and doing various other hurtful and toxic behaviors. But it all comes from a place of fear. It all comes from a place of a fear of abandonment, a fear of rejection, and a fear of engulfment. The fear of engulfment is The fear of losing themselves, losing their independence in a relationship to somebody who's ultimately going to abandon and reject them. It all is driven by fear, and fear is one of the most powerful human emotions, but it's also one of the most irrational. When an avoidant is doing the discard, they are functioning solely out of the amygdala. The amygdala is the lobe of the brain that controls the emotions. The prefrontal cortex, where the logical and rational thought is offline. The avoidant is not communicating with their prefrontal cortex. It is all driven by emotions. They're essentially a leaf in the emotional breeze. Whichever way the emotions go is the way they go. They're being dictated purely by emotions at this point. And it can result in very hurtful behavior because the avoidant is only thinking of themselves. They're only thinking of their own feelings, their immediate needs, wants, whatever they perceive those to be, and they're not considering about the impact that it has on the partner. Because being discarded is a crushing blow to someone's self-esteem. It can make someone feel like they're lower than dirt because they're not even worthy of an explanation. They're not even worthy of this person even trying to salvage a relationship. But if you've been discarded, recognize that that is a reflection of the unhealed traumas and wounds of the avoidant. It is not a reflection of you. You can't make anybody do anything. We all have free will. And yes, even though we know why avoidants discard, it's still a choice on their part. They could choose a different behavior. No one's putting a gun to their head and forcing them to discard somebody. That was a choice they made on their own because they have free will. And yes, it was also a selfish and hurtful choice. But those are the two main reasons why avoidants discard. The number one reason is because the relationship is going well, and that's precisely what scares them. And the second reason is because they simply don't know how to handle even the tiniest bit of conflict.